One of the first things we notice and usually fall in love with when we look at other people's art are colors. They can evoke emotions, they can express, they can tell a story, they can draw attention like nothing else. And so I think it's worth it for us to spend a moment understanding color. But worry not, I will not overwhelm you with major color theory lesson. I will show you one foolproof way that will make building color palettes fun and easy, and they will always work, I promise. We need to start with a color wheel. I love a color wheel, and I believe everybody should have one in their art studio. Even if it's one that you printed out of the internet, you don't need to have a professional one. Let me show you the basics of a color wheel. So we always put yellow at the top. That's the top of the color wheel. And we have, as you can very easily see, warm half and cool half. That doesn't mean that every blue is always a cool color, because surprisingly, blues can be warm too. But let's not get into that, right? Warm and cool. So the first way of using color is to use colors from one half only, right? So on your artwork, you could choose to use warm colors only. So reds, oranges, and yellows, and warm purples, and gold greens. Or just cool colors, and that will always work. But that may not be as exciting as this method, which is called using adjacent colors. So look at your color wheel. Now this one is a bit confusing because there's a lot of colors on it. So just look at the outer circle. Choose one color that speaks to you today. One color you feel like today. Let's say you're starting a new artwork. So let's just choose one that speaks to you. So I'm gonna go for this red violet. I really like it. So I find it on the color wheel and I look at what's next to it. What colors are adjacent to it? So I have this red and this violet. Now I promise you that if you use these three colors that are adjacent on your artwork will look harmonious and balanced and beautiful. This is true, honestly. Let's try it. But okay, hold on. Before we try it, let's prepare our surface. I want to test some colors in our art journal. So, let's not be boring. Let's have some different surfaces here. So I would like to glue some of those neutral looking papers onto my spread. And I have this amazing vintage ledger. I think that's from a pharmacy. I bought it on eBay for about £40, I think maybe 5 years ago, and I've been using it ever since, and it's got a few blank pages and pages that have been written on, and it's just gorgeous, so much gorgeous paper. So that's definitely something you may want to search for online. Right, so my method, obviously, PVA glue. We want a nice smooth sheet of paper. I'm gonna use my silicone brush this time because I have it handy, and that's as good as an old credit card. And now, because why not, I want to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm gonna spread a little bit of white gesso. And maybe even a little bit of clear gesso too. So this will give me slightly different surfaces. It will just bring a little bit more fun to my color testing and palette building. Right, so we've got the surface for testing colors roughly dry, at least in some places. I can make a start. Let's go back to our color wheel. So as you remember, we're going for the adjacent color scheme, which will always work. I went for this red and violet. So now grab any kind of color medium that's dry that you've got. So markers, pencils, crayons, pastels, whatever you got. Even your kids' crayons will work. Now you may not get as vibrant results in colors, but it will work and it will allow you to play. So you don't need to buy a new set of pencils to do this. Just grab what you've got. So I've got a jar of pencils that my kids always play with in my studio. So that's full of very random colors. I have some dry pastels, which I really love and I have a lot of, and they are easy to use. I also have some Inktense pencils, which are water soluble. We will talk about this a little bit later. Right now, just focus on having a lot of colors available to you. And I have some water soluble crayons, Neo Color too. The more colors you've got at your table while you're playing with putting color palettes together, the better. Right, so now I'm going for this red violet. So I'm gonna look in my jar and try and find it among my colors. I think that's it actually. I've been really lucky straight away. And I'm going to make a larger mark with it in one area. And I think that's pretty close. I mean, as close as it gets. Now, I could really do with a sharpener, but that's my kid's job, right? They are always in need of a sharpener. Right, so I have this color, which is close enough to me. Now I need to find this violet and this red among my colors, or at least as close as I can. So this is red. I'm gonna put it right next to it. And you can already tell straight away, this looks great together. They work, right? They don't clash, they don't shout at each other, don't fight, don't argue. Everything's fine. There's good atmosphere here. And that's the magic of adjacent colors. And now I'm looking for this violet. Not really it. I think that's going to be pretty perfect. I'm going to put it next to these colors. It's a little bit darker than the other ones, but it looks beautiful together with them. They look gorgeous. They're happy. And that is an adjacent color scheme, super easy. Straight away, you have a ready-made color palette. And if you want to, you can add an extra color that is next to one of those three on the color wheel. So you could go for this red orange, or you could go for this blue violet if you want to keep it a little cooler. I don't know if that's the right one. That's blue violet. So let's add it. It also works. It's a bit too cool maybe, but that's the pencil I've got, so that's fine. So let's say you're starting a new artwork. That's all you need to do, right? You build your compositions with papers. And now before you reach for your paints or pencils or whatever you're going to be adding color with, look at your color wheel. Find the color you want to use the most and see what's next to it on the color wheel and use those only. And that will always work. Right, let me build a few more color palettes with adjacent colors using different supplies. As you play with colors and the adjacent color scheme, you will quickly start putting these colors together without having to look at your color wheel. It will become more natural. You will quickly understand what colors go together and which clash. Now, speaking of clashing, sometimes it may seem as if your artwork needs a little bit extra energy because adjacent color scheme is very harmonious, it's very calm, but sometimes you want to bring that extra energy into your work. And that's when you can add an extra color, and that's a little bit of a kind of next level in skill, but you can definitely do it once you practiced with these. So let's go back to this palette because that's a big obvious one, right? So we have this yellow orange, we have this yellow and quite intense orange. Just these red orange, orange and yellow orange, right? So they look really good together. And if you want to add a little bit more energy to it and a little bit more impact and boldness, choose the color, one of these colors, find it on the color wheel. Let's go with this orange. And look what is on the opposite side of the color wheel to it. So orange, and we go right to the opposite side. This is blue. And if you add just a little bit of that blue to your artwork that's based on these 3 colors, you will get immediate impact. This is called a complementary contrasting color. So let's find the blue. So you could go for this exact blue or slightly darker. Now you can just hold your pastel or pencil near that color palette to see how much energy that immediately brings. I'm gonna go for this darker one. So add a small amount of it, not too much, and you see how it immediately creates contrast and boldness. So if you would be working on a piece of artwork, you use these 3 adjacent colors. At the end, you may want to take a step away and have a look. Does it need a little bit of extra something? If it does, look for the color that's on the opposite side of the color wheel and add a little speck of it here and there, or maybe find an element in a magazine, cut it out, that's in this color, stick it on and see how it feels. That's a really good way of bringing a little bit of vibrancy to your art. But start with adjacent color schemes. Play with those. Fill your page with different combinations and see which ones speak to you the most. Which ones do you like? Circle that. Make sure you remember, like, I love these, and anything with that green and blue is just gorgeous. I love all of them, but yeah, it's a good way of finding out what is it that you really like. I'm going much more in depth into color in my Color Confidence Masterclass. So if you'd like to learn some more color schemes and create some more art with me, check the link in the description.